my name is Tristan, and I'm in second grade, and I asked my teacher to show me an experiment where water curves. She couldn't do it because it doesn't curve. The water always finds its level.
What'd your teacher do?
She just didn't talk to me anymore. All she did was walk away. And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. My name is Tristan, and I'm in second grade, and I asked my teacher to show me an experiment where water curves. She couldn't do it because it doesn't curve. The water always finds its level.
What'd your teacher do?
She just didn't talk to me anymore. All she did was walk away. And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it.
Up for sound bites. This is awesome.
All right. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Anti-Religious Scripture Study. You are here once again with me, Karen B, and Just Jack Flat Earth on this fine
Shabbat
Saturday.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, we had fun playing with our technical issues as always, and we got it working, so let's go.
Yeah, fine. Fun. We got it all worked out. I saw 11:11 as it happened. I didn't call it out because I was, making sure my stream was going and stuff. But anyway, ready to go. Want to read your disclaimer, Jack?
Sure, we'll just pop that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I love when I do that when I can't even say my own name. Just Jack's disclaimer. To the religious, if you believe it's wrong to study scripture outside of your religion or denomination, if you believe your religious leaders or church fathers are incapable of having inherited anti-scriptural traditions of men, if you've already made up your mind about scripture, including the scripture should not be studied at all, then this stream is not for you. To others, if you are open-minded to others' opinions, if you haven't made up your mind about scripture, if you've been turned off to religion but believe there's truth in scripture that may have been changed or hidden by religion, if you live according to scripture and like to dig in and discover more, then this stream is for you. We are looking at scripture in the original language using concordances or dictionaries for root words, as well as context from a non-religion perspective, as well as life experience discussion. We are not here to argue with others about theology or doctrine by the traditions of men, including Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. We will be discussing the importance of origins and show how religions contradict the scriptures. There we go. All right.
Right on.
All right. Let's see the chat here. I'm trying to move my windows around. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready to go when you are.
All right.
We can take a review of last week if you'd like.
Sure. A little recap. Last week was a long chapter.
Long chapter.
Let's see. Last week was 41, right? And this was about, well, a lot happened in this chapter. The Pharaoh.
Well, if you read the header, it's all about Joseph interprets dreams. It's always about Joseph interpreting dreams. Never anything about the meat.
Right. And also
prophecy of blessing and curse. Really.
Right. With the 7 cows.
We got an oath of we got an oath of famine, and we got an oath of blessing. And the oath of blessing is going to be so much that you can store up enough to go through the curse.
Right.
We got fat cows eating skinny cows. We got fat grain eating skinny grain. Grain, vice versa.
Yeah, skinny grain eating fat grain and skinny cows eating fat cows, and then not looking any better for having eaten the fat cows.
Right. And so much so that you won't even remember the fat because of the skinny being around for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember when we were prosperous? Nah, man. When was that?
I'm too effing hungry.
I'm suffering right now. Yeah. Freaking hungry. I can't think about that right now. And yes, I made a boo-boo on my wrist.
Did you?
I twisted it somehow. If you were wondering about the bandage.
I didn't even see it.
I think it was because I was changing it right here.
Oh, geez.
It's just an ace bandage to stop rotation of my wrist so it can heal. But
so, and then because
the seal ring, that was an important part. The seal ring, because it's the marker for the authority. So Joseph is literally number 2 in all of Egypt.
Right. I was just going to say the Pharaoh puts Joseph basically in power only under himself and so that's it. Joseph rises to power. Uh-oh, Jack. Did I lose you?
Approach him and just kiss him on the mouth. It just isn't going to happen.
Okay, whatever you said, we missed.
Okay, Sky made a weird noise. Are we still connected?
We are now, but it came back when you said kiss him on the mouth.
Oh, I said with that authority, most people probably would not be able to approach him and kiss him on the mouth. The likelihood is not the translation of kiss, but to kiss means to interact with, to be an armory for, so it's a very loose translation word that can sometimes mean kiss if it fits in the context. But even though there you can kind of possibly changed it to an embrace or, some kind of other physical interaction. So,
Mm-hmm. Right. So anyways, Joseph is in power and he saves all the grain while there's the big plentiful harvest of grain for the 7 years, and he saves a whole bunch. And then when the scarcity comes, he starts to get rich because everybody's coming to buy grain off Joseph because he was smart and saved it all.
Right. And don't forget that Joseph's name means to store.
Right.
Right. So that's an important part. Like in the Hebrew practice, I'm talking like pre-Judaism, right? The Hebrew practice, you don't name your child right away. You actually wait for intervention or download or whatever you want to call it to be what this child's name is going to be. And typically, for a male, it's done when the circumcision is done. So for 8 days, they're contemplating on what to call the child's name. And then it's established with the dedication of the circumcision. And a lot of the times you'll see what their name means as they live their life. So some people had named their children what you would think would not be a good name for a child, something that's very negative. But then you see in their lifetime, it's like it's a prophecy over what's going to happen over the land, not necessarily to the individual, but what the individual is growing up in. So it's kind of interesting when you look into that kind of stuff about what their name means and how it interacts with the narrative. And that's why we skip over the names part, because each name could be like an entire sentence or an entire idea, thought process, where if you look at them in the context of their storyline, it makes perfect sense. But if you just kind of just read over just the names, it becomes very, this one begot that one, begot this one, begot that one. And you're like, who cares?
Right.
We don't know these characters. We don't know what they're, who they are, what they're about. But when you translate their names, you do find out who they are and what they're about. So there's actually a whole story just in translating the names. And, like I said, if you haven't done it before, if you get a wild hair and you want to check it out, I guarantee you'll find some interesting tidbits in the translations of names. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. So we can get into 42 if you'd like.
Yes.
And there's a lot in here that while I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it's linguistic interesting. So I'll just wait for things to jump out at me, and I'll jump in like I do sometimes.
Okay. I'll say this has got 38 verses, so this is the longer one too then.
It's not short, but it's
medium.
It's medium.
Yeah.
It's medium.
It's a decent sized chapter. And
yeah, it's a decent sized chapter.
There are 50 chapters in Genesis.
It didn't hurt that much to translate it like the last one. The last one I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? And I actually got done a day early on that one. So
that's cool.
Because I was so intent on making sure I got it done. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to speed through it either, because we may miss something. Like
right.
I wasn't paying attention when it was translated as 30 when it should have been threes. Right?
Right.
Because 3s and 30 are the same term, because typically you don't speak of 3 in plural unless it's 30. But sometimes 3s are in plural, and it has to be in the context.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets interesting.
Yeah. All right. Chapter 42 of Genesis. Here we go. And when Jacob saw that there was grain in Mitzrayim, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at each other?"
Okay, pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't know. I'm not really sure why in this instant Torah goes back to calling him Yaakov, because he's not Yaakov anymore, is he?
No.
This is Yisrael.
He's right. That's right.
Yeah. So the only thing I can think of is because Yisrael becomes a nation, the translators or the recorders can't use Yisrael Otherwise, they may cause confusion. Is the whole nation of Yisrael saying, see, there's no grain, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it actually refers to him as Yaakov and not Yisrael. Now, that may not be interesting to some people, but to me it is.
Well,
Because
it
they
is
made a
interesting
point.
if his name's already changed, and this
Yeah.
is like after that time. That is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they made a very exaggerated point. Like, he will no longer be called Yaakov. He will now be called Yisrael, stuff like that.
All right.
But it is only a narrative, so.
Okay. And he said, "See, I have heard that there is grain in Mitzrayim. Go down to that place and buy for us there, and let us live and not die."
Okay, so pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So grain is not just grain. It's the bursting out like a grain does on the stalk, and it also means exchange. Okay, so there's a possible for an exchange of food,
Mm-hmm.
right? And food being the primary source of your grain. So that can be, I see there, I've heard that there's an exchange in Mitzrayim,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a place where we can get
Or like a
some
market,
grain.
like a farmer's market.
Exactly. And then it says right there, excuse me, go down to that place and buy. That word buy is the same word. Burst out grain exchange. So the first word is grain, translated from shin bet resh, and the second one is translated as buy, shin bet resh.
I see.
Yep, that's the first one, and that's the second one.
Okay.
So it really is about context, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you used the exchange in both of those terms, then it would still make sense. See, I've heard there's an exchange in Mitzrayim. Go down to that place and exchange for us there, and let us live and not die.
Okay. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Mitzrayim. But Yaakov did not send Joseph's brother Binyamin with his brothers, for he said, lest some harm come to him.
Now, if you remember, Joseph was his favorite child, firstborn of his love.
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin is his second love child from his love, who died in childbirth. So, very valuable son to him.
Okay, so he doesn't want
Because
him going
Joseph, he thinks,
anywhere.
is dead by animals.
That's right.
So he's really concerned to save his last remembrance of his beloved wife.
That's right.
Which was the bad wife.
Joseph in earlier chapters was thrown in a pit and then sold into slavery, but then through the interpretation of the dreams and those series of events, he came into power in Egypt, and nobody knows this yet. They don't know this.
That's right.
Okay.
They all think, his brothers think he's at least in slavery, possibly dead.
Mm-hmm.
The father thinks he's absolutely dead. And Benjamin doesn't even know him because he was just a baby when it all went down.
Right, okay. And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the scarcity of food was in the land of Canaan.
And see, it says buy grain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Buy grain is there's only one word. But they turned it into two.
Mm-hmm.
It's like seber. Like, it's actually, they went to exchange. Exchange would have been perfectly fine in this instance.
Right. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth, the arets.
And it's not really governor, it's master of the realm.
Master of the realm.
Yep. It's a little higher than what we would think about a governor.
Right? I think, yeah.
A governor takes the opinion of the people. Joseph can do whatever he wants. He's number 2 in charge.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke to them harshly and said to them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food."
Like, what are you people doing here?
Yeah.
You people.
So he's messing with them.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him.
Yeah, and I don't understand why they use recognize, because it is just know.
Mm-hmm.
He knew his brothers. His brothers didn't know him. It doesn't mean like they didn't know he existed. It's just they didn't know that he was him.
Right.
So, yeah, knowing still would have worked there. So,
Well, recognize works there too.
yeah, I'm
I don't think
saying
it's
like
terrible.
it's not recognize is typically translated from see. This literally means know, to know.
Okay.
And then if you look at even the King James Version, they translate it as knew. It was perfectly fine. So yeah, if you go to KJV,
Yeah, but they knew
knew.
not him. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been perfectly fine. Don't know why they chose recognize, I guess for literary flow or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, why would they need to change it to recognize? It's
I
a
don't know.
knowing. It's about knowing. So,
And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land."
okay, so what dream did he have of his brothers?
That they would be bowing to him.
Very good. Good memory. Yep. So way back when, they helped interpret the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you saying that we're going to bow down to you?
Yeah.
And even our parents are? Come on.
Yeah. Right. And they said to him, "No, my master, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are all trustworthy. Your servants are not spies." But he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land."
Okay. Exposed.
Expose.
What's exposed of the land, right?
Mhm.
This is that same word where Adam and Eve were exposed and they didn't care
Mhm.
until they had their transformation.
Right. And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And see, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." And Joseph said to them, "It is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. By this you shall be proven. By the life of Pharaoh, you do not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother while you are kept in prison. So let your words be proven to see whether there is any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, you are spies."
So he's going to toss one of them in a pit.
Right? Because they threw him in a pit.
Yep. Now it's their turn.
And he put them all together in prison for 3 days. Now Joseph said to them the third day, "Do this and live, for I fear Elohim. If you are trustworthy, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house, and you go, bring grain for the scarcity of food to your houses."
I find this interesting. Go back to verse 18 really
Okay.
quick. So he said to them on the third day, the Elohim of mine thrown back. Okay, so I fear my Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just I fear Elohim. It's his Elohim, and he's not portraying that his Elohim is their Elohim, right? Because it's a vague statement. There's no reason for these children of Israel to believe that an Egyptian master is worshiping the same Elohim. So there is a difference between these Elohim. Elohim is not a name, it's just a title.
Okay. If you are trustworthy, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house, and you go bring grain for the scarcity of food to your houses. Okay, already said that part.
Yep.
And bring your youngest brother to me, and let your words be confirmed, and you do not die. And so they did. And they said...
Okay, hold on, go back.
Okay.
So I missed a translation here. If you see, it says Esau.
Uh-huh.
So it says, and you do make affirm. So they did make him true. And so they did. But because the name Esau is in there, it pulled it out.
What do you mean? I don't.
Okay. In the translation, you see Esau?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's not actually there. There's no name of Esau there.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. So what's going
But the
on?
translation of his name is do make him.
Oh, I see. So you're just pointing out that his name.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be Esau there. It's supposed to be do or make, do affirm.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's because that 3-letter root is in there, it got translated as the name. Where in reality, it's a 2-letter word and a suffix.
Okay.
So if you highlight those 3 letters, the 2 on the right, from right to left, is ayin shin, which means do or make, and then the vav means him or them.
Okay.
But in this case, it's and he does, and they do or make him affirm. So truth, right? Affirmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? Can means yes or affirm. So they did that thing that made true.
Okay.
And see, I missed that during the translation, but I caught it just then. Like, wait, Esau, that's not supposed to be there.
All right. And they said to each other, "Truly we are guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the distress of his life when he pleaded with us, yet we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us."
And then it says, truly we are guilty. It doesn't say truly. It says, flowing away, guilt. Okay, so flowing away is, depending on the context, you have to know what this flowing away is. In this case, it's a flowing away of doubt.
Right. So they're saying
So
there's no doubt.
there's no doubt we're guilty concerning our brother.
And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not speak to you, saying, 'Do not sin against the boy,' and you would not listen? And see, his blood is now required of us."
So he's saying we're getting punished because of what we did to Joseph.
Yeah. And they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter.
And interpret is mock or translate. Because like if you're speaking and someone is mocking you by moving their mouth, pretending like mocking you, right?
Like copying.
So like if you have 2 children and one's standing in front of you and you're discussing things with your child, and there's another child behind you pretending to be you, lipping your words, that's the same thing as translate.
Okay.
So it's moving your mouth to mock, or moving your mouth to translate. So in translation, obviously you're moving your mouth to say exactly what they're saying, only in a different language.
Ah, okay.
So mocking doesn't work here. They didn't know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke through somebody that was mocking them. Like, ooh, you're talking like a Hebrew, let me mock you. Right.
Right.
That's not what was happening.
Right. Because he didn't want them to figure out who he was yet.
Exactly. Yeah, and he probably didn't even have to speak out loud, right? He's number 2 in charge.
Right.
He could say, okay, say this to them. You know.
Exactly. And he turned himself away from them and wept, but came back to them and spoke to them. And he took Shimon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph commanded, and they filled their sacks with grain, also to put back every man's silver to his sack, and to give them food for the journey, and thus it was done for them.
Yeah, and that sack is actually vessel. So it could have been a sack, or it could have been a basket, or it could have been anything. But later on, it does talk about basically a cinch sack where you had drawstrings to stretch the mouth open. So later it refers to a sack, but in this case it just means the kali. So kal means all, and then e means plural of. So all of them or to store all.
Okay. So they loaded their donkeys with grain and went from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his silver, for there it was in the mouth of his sack. And he said to his brothers, "My silver has been returned, and there it is in my sack." And their hearts sank, and they were afraid, saying to each other, "What is this that Elohim has done to us?" So they came to Yaakov their father in the land of Canaan, and reported to him that all that befell them, saying, "The man, the master of the land, spoke to us harshly and took us for spies of the land."
So the davar, the word of the ish, the man, Lord the Eretz. Okay, so it's not just spoke. It's the word. It's the, what do you call it? The authoritative order of the word. So it's not just, he was nonchalantly saying, it's like, no, this is the definite word on the matter.
But we said to him, "We are trustworthy, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is today with our father in the land of Canaan." And the man, the master of the land, said to us, "By this I know that you are trustworthy. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the scarcity of food for your households, and go. And bring your youngest brother to me. Then I know that you are not spies, but that you are trustworthy. I give your brother to you, and you move about in the land."
Okay, so go back for a second.
Okay.
Not spies, because affirm action to your action brother of you. Give, it says givey, to you, and action to the Eretz, you merchants of him. So that part wasn't included. You will move about the land like a merchant.
Okay.
So, in other words, you'll be able to enter the trade route without us thinking you're a spy.
Okay. And it came to be, as they emptied their sacks, that, look, the bundle of each man's silver was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of silver, they were afraid. So they're worried because they went and got grain, and they feel like they didn't pay for the grain because because Joseph gave them grain and their money back.
Yep. Yeah, he stuck it in their sacks.
And they're like freaked out. Like, are they setting us? They probably think they're being set up, huh?
Exactly. But what did they say? They're like, "Oh, what is Elohim doing to us? He's punishing us for what we did to our brother." Da 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 da.
Right. Okay. And Yaakov, their father, said to them, "You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, and Shimon is no more, and you would take Binyamin. All this is against me." So Reuben spoke to his father, saying, "Take the lives of my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I myself bring him back to you."
So he's saying, "Take my children as hostage."
So he's like basically trying to guarantee that he'll bring him back.
Right.
But he said, "My son is not going down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any harm should come to him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to Sheol."
Okay. And what happens next? You'll have to tune in next week.
I have to say, man, the Bible stories are pretty interesting. The stuff that happened.
They have a lot more detail than what they put in, Sunday school or cartoons or movies. There's a lot more in-depth conversation going on. There's more, cause and effect relationships going on. It's very important to get context to understand exactly what's happening.
Well, what's funny?
This is usually where they take like the storyline points that are pushed in the church, like Joseph's interpretation. It's all about Joseph interpreting. So then in the movie, they'll include all of Joseph's interpretations, but they'll leave the other premises of the story out, and then they can add extra stuff in, a love interest or a friendship made or the discussions that were happening in the background of the story. But there's enough here for dialogue to continue the story out, but they just choose to make it for entertainment value or whatever. I don't are they doing it on purpose? Are they doing it because of their ignorance, or are they doing it just because they're trying to control the narrative? I don't know. It's hard to tell, but every time I watch a Bible-based movie, it pisses me off. I'd rather watch complete garbage than to see somebody twist what the scripture says.
Oh my gosh, Jack, have you watched the Noah movie from 2015 with Russell
I
Crowe?
have.
I watched that. I watched that the other day, and I was like, what is this?
They used stuff from Torah, they used stuff from Enoch, and then they added their own, what do you call it? Hollywood flair.
In scripture that he goes on the ark with his sons and the wives of his 3 sons, and then in the movie only one son has a wife and the others don't, and there's this whole dramatic thing about trying to get a wife before they have to get on the boat, and then this whole BS story with Tubal-Cain hiding on the ark.
Yeah, and Noah trying to make sure that there's no repopulation, trying to make sure that
Noah
everybody
trying
dies.
To kill his own children,
Yep.
And that was at the forefront of it when they had other stuff in there that I was like, oh, look at that. That's really cool. Where it showed that part where it was people were light beings in the Garden of Eden before they were flesh. I was like, oh, dude, they put light beings in there. That's really cool. And they also showed the water coming up from the ground, out of geysers out of the ground, which creates creators, right?
Yep.
So it's there's some cool stuff in there, but it was way overshadowed by all of their freaking garbage that they had to insert into that story. I was like, man, this could have been such a cool movie if they did not change.
Yeah, if they stayed right on the script of the actual events, it would have been just as epic.
Right?
For sure.
And I'm like, I feel like the real story was dramatic enough. Why did you guys have to do that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it's if things had continued the way they were, according to the scripture, the whole human type, I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to get into an argument of who the whatever, who the sons of Elohim were and all that stuff. I don't want to get into that. But what I'm saying, the human type would have been 100% corrupted if Noah didn't escape with his family, right? There was the end result of the way things were going is that there would not be any more connection to the Creator, and all humankind would be completely corrupted, right? That was the whole point of, saving Noah and his family. And it says he was found righteous. Well, this righteous man would not think, I need to wipe out my children. Right,
exactly.
I need to stop all life altogether. That's not.
They made him look like a psycho.
Yeah, it's not the premise at all. And not only that, but it appeared as though it didn't seem like there was actually any interaction between Noah and the Creator. It's just Noah's own mind that came up with the idea.
He's like, why don't you answer me? Or no, who said that? Tubal-Cain said that. But anyways, yeah, there's no actual communication going on directly between Noah and the Creator.
Right. And so that's why, it's even the simple one of Yosef, where they're the coat of many colors and the dreams and all that other stuff, but then they got to have a side interest, with the friendship that's being made between him and his slave master, and it just goes on. And this, the 12 commandments, the 10 commandments is complete garbage, man. You would think. It's funny because I watched the 10 Commandments recently, the very old one, not the black and white one, the color one, and they were actually doing some good stuff. On the tablets, it was actually Paleo Hebrew on there, which I didn't notice before because I didn't know what Paleo Hebrew was. But the whole premise of Noah going up, sorry, not Noah, but Moshe going up by himself and getting the commands, and no point where the people gathered together at the bottom of the mountain, and they all hearing together the words of Yah, shaking the mountain, and they feared death. And, it's like, that's a very important part. It's an integral part of knowing that this was the only million man experience of Yah in existence, where all the other ones are just some dude in the middle of the forest or the desert or whatever that hears from a deity that becomes the premise of their new religion, right? This is a whole group of people. Like, there's no question here of who the creator is because they're hearing from him directly. So them taking that out removed that very integral part. And then they had this other, love interest and his brother relationship with the Pharaoh and all this other stuff that they just shove in there to make it a fluffy story, but they take out the very important parts in between. They actually went to war a couple times in the desert that they don't even bring in there, And that's the same thing in church when they talk about Moses going through the desert for 40 years. And then when they got there, they went to war to take over the land. Nobody even acknowledges that they had to go to war while they were in the desert. They were pursued because they were, they're a group of people out there with resources. They're going to get attacked. They're going to have to go to war,
right.
So anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very frustrating, like you said, if you just read through the scriptures with an open mind and read the details, it's a very interesting book. I mean, it's the only book, and I know people are going to get mad at me and stuff, but it's the only book that I read. Like, it's the only book that I study. Like, I'll glance through or speed read through other books of information, but this is the only book where I really try to make sure I understand what it says, because it matters. These little integral parts actually build the whole premise of who we are and who we're supposed to be. It's not just it's not just flaky stories for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
There's a whole cause and effect relationship, and people need to know that. There's even in other philosophical premises, they know there's a cause and effect relationship of doing good or doing evil, doing functional, doing dysfunctional, so.
Exactly.
So, yep, that is a medium chapter, and it looks like, let's see, tomorrow for me, but next week for y'all, chapter 43, let's see.
34 verses.
Yep, 34 verses, and it still doesn't complete the scene. So, yeah,
No,
it's
it
going to be a
doesn't.
few chapters with this storyline.
Wow, this goes on for a while with Joseph and his brothers.
Yep. There's a whole thing.
Wow.
And it's not just in no movie have I ever seen all these details being fit in.
Dude, the next 4 chapters are about Joseph.
Yep. And then it talks about them dwelling in Egypt up until the last chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this one is a very intricate storyline. I mean, it's very important that you get the context of how they come back together and how his brothers had to be humbled first.
Yeah.
So, yep, good stuff.
Interesting. All right, cool. Well, thanks, Jack, and thanks everybody for joining us once again for Anti-Religious Scripture Study.
Shabbat Shalom, y'all.
Shabbat Shalom. Have a good day. Enjoy
Still
the day.
Flat.
Still flat.
Earth is still flat for sure.
Absolutely. And we'll see y'all next week.